years ago, we started researching about oysters here in St. Augustine, which is where Whitney is located. This past summer, in August of 2016, we were awarded a grant from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And the first part is what we call oyster gardening. And it's just like as if you were gardening and raising your vegetables and flowers. We recruited 48 oyster gardeners right now, all up and down the coast here, from Palm Coast to north of St. Augustine. And what these people do is they hang a couple of cages with oyster spat, baby oysters, in the cages.
The adult oysters, we induce them to spawn by changing water temperature, and then once we get the oysters to spawn, we start raising them in the hatchery tanks. And what you see here is the villager stage. That's the first 24 hours after they hatch. They basically start swimming. They grow and they last for about 2.5 weeks. At that time, the oysters develop a foot. It's called peri-villagers, and they have a spot they call eye spot. And at that time, the oysters are ready to start looking for substrate where they're going to be attaching. And that's when we introduce the shells to the tanks in the hatchery, and then those oysters attach to the shells.
Well, the Whitney Lab was originally established for marine bioscience. Our main goals here are to look to the ocean for solutions to modern day problems. And one of the tasks that I'm working on now is looking at ecosystem degradation and potentially restoration using oysters. Well, so our oyster resources in St. Augustine are absolutely part of our culture. So their food, their habitat, they actually provide several ecosystem services, how we term them, but they protect our shorelines from erosion, their habitat for fish, and they grow all the things that fish eat. And so they are critical links in our coastal ecosystems. Because our oyster resources in this area of Florida, and actually worldwide, are declining at an alarming rate, part of our goals with this project are to reinvigorate oyster populations in the intercoastal waterways. And one of the ways we're doing that is with a community oyster restoration enhancement module. We call these the core modules, and they're actually constructed out of biodegradable materials, and they have a dual purpose. One is to stabilize our shorelines from erosion, which is something that oyster bars normally do, and in the absence of, we're hoping to put that back in the system. At the same time, they're creating a substrate for oysters to colonize on, and the orientation of those oysters in the module is very important. They're oriented vertically, they don't silt out, meaning they don't acquire a lot of sediment on those surfaces, and that allows the juvenile oysters to stick there in a healthy way. Now, the goals of that program are to get these modules out in the water in several key places where we've lost oyster bars in the past, in a way catalyze oyster bar formation. In the long term, 5 to 6 year period, we expect the biodegradable concrete to disappear and leave us with only the oyster bar there, no fingerprints of human activity.